When you see her in the ship, I think this is the first wake-up call for Alex, where she realizes that she's lived a very privileged, sheltered life.
What makes it so convincing is just the motion that we can mimic a large rogue wave, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. So we're moving a point to point.
We had less than 5 weeks to design and assemble the whole structure.
I mean, it's remarkable.
What sells it is the actual articles that are hanging.
Something that you washed and dried.
What we used for.
Okay, okay.
If you didn't know that things swayed back and forth, you wouldn't know that there's movement.
In this shot, they want to see some water running across the floor. This is just something on the fly. When the full set tips down, it will just spill some water.
It's terrifying, and it kicks the journey off in a very scary place.
You've known me for a long time, Roy. This is about as far as I care to be pushed.
Threatening the judge, Jake?
Threats have a level of uncertainty that comes with them.
Zane is basically my foreman, who suffered a beating at the hands of lawmen because his wife is of a different race, which for some reason has been outlawed.
I don't make the laws of this land. I preside over the consequences of their violation.
Whitfield has colluded with a judge to intimidate him into actually exercising the authority of the law in this case, because it's pretty much a law that's ignored.
You're married to a cruel woman. 2 states over, that law applies to you, and you're the one being judged.
Guess it's a good thing I live in Montana.
It's just one of the inequities that existed in that time, the really substantial inequities.
It's interesting, even going back, 100 years. In real life, I'm married to someone of color, and so for me, it was really personal when I got that storyline and really dive into what that means.
We're taking your family home. You've been released. You too.
When we find him, he's having trouble walking. He's got these pains in his head. So it's gonna be a little trickier getting him home since we can't throw him on horseback.
They have anybody look you over? Doctor, surgeon, anybody?
And no one looked me over.
We'll get you out of here.
Where does that go?
Well, it goes right in your belly. We need to do this 12 times over the next 10 days.
The scene where Elizabeth gets bit by a wolf and what happens after with the rabies shot and the doctor is the most pivotal scene for Elizabeth because it sets the tone for the rest of the season for her.
Now, if you'll lift your dress, please.
You're not putting that in my stomach.
She is expected to act like a woman, but she's treated like a child. And this is a perfect example of that.
I said no.
Hold her.
He gives her no choice, there's no discussion, there's no time. It's just immediately she's held down and given this shot. And in that moment, she loses all sense of agency. She's completely and utterly violated in that moment. I think that just shows what her life has become on this ranch is do what you're told or die.
This is too much. I love him, but this isn't living. This is surviving.
She hasn't fully grasped what the reality of living in this way is, and to take the romance of it out, Cara fully embraces the challenges of living in Montana in 1923. Winter is always hard, and this one has been harder than most. But then the spring comes, and there's nothing so splendid as the mountains in the spring.
We seek a murderer who we believe has fled to the Comanche Nation.
Which one?
At the end of season 1, we left him off in a rageful pursuit of Tiona, hoping to find her, bring her back to justice, and bringing her back to God. That's the most important thing for me.
If we wish them to abandon their pagan ways, we must offer the reward of equality.
But you want Indians to vote? Marry our women?
They're your women? All of them?
My quest is a different quest. It's about religion. Marshall Kent is of a different nature.
I am a man of the cloth. Take the fucking gun.
I love this antagonism that starts building between the two men.
You did a good thing. It was worth saving. Tonight, we celebrate you.
They get into Galveston and
His cousins are very adamant on repaying the favor, which is essentially him doing things for them.
Senora Machado showing you great hospitality. To refuse him is an insult.
And when he protests that, they essentially say, well, if you don't do this, we're gonna kill you.
So Spencer is walking against the flow of traffic on the right. So he's walking along this bridge, like exactly 3, 4, maybe 5 cars pass him, and then there's a slight lull in the oncoming traffic, and 2 cars pull up like this. They go ahead of him and form themselves into this block. Spencer ends up here. Exactly. Fight.
I love doing physical stuff. I'm a physical guy in my life. And to do those sequences, and when you get the synergy right, and it all kind of comes together, and you know when it's happening, when it happens. And I love cooking that way. It's cool.
And cut rehearsal. I can't see a thing!
They get caught in a blizzard. Their horses can't find their way home. They have to turn their horses loose to save them, hoping that they'll be able to gather them when the storm breaks.
We've got Zane in rough shape. We've got his kids with us, his wife. I've never shot anything like that, with the horses and driving the buggy down a hill, and they're firing huge snow machines at us and just yelling back and forth with Harrison, trying to survive. I'll never forget shooting that scene. It was really neat, really cool to do.
We gotta flip the wagon!
In order to get through the night, they turn the wagon over, and everybody huddles in the wagon. Another example of how tough life was in those days.
Snuggle up, shoulder to shoulder. Here's where we all get to know each other real good.